Okay, I'm just going to quickly show you how to change a roll. You just press the eject button there. You can obviously pull the paper over, so if the rolls run out there'll just be either nothing in there or a little plastic tube on the end. So if you just put that back in, right, let it just slip over the top, press it, and there we go. You pull the spare bit of paper off. And that's as simple as that is. If obviously you are changing a roll, if you're pulled up at the roadside by Vosa and there's not enough roll to do a print off, they'll obviously ask you, have you got a spare roll? So you'll put your spare roll in, start printing, and they may ask you then and say, well, where's your spare roll now then? So it's always wise, just a general rule of thumb, to carry 2 spare rolls at any one time, just in case. I mean, before you even get in the vehicle, it's always advised that you check the amount of roll that is in the machine and replace it if it's running low or there is none in there. That will save obviously any embarrassment at the roadside or any possibility of infringements. You then must make sure obviously when you've replaced that roll in the machine you've got a spare roll, and then you shouldn't have any problems. The last thing you want really is a fine from Vosa. So there's one thing I didn't mention in the video, and that's something you need to be extremely careful of on the tachograph units. A lot of tachograph units are programmed in different ways to do different things, so not every single unit will be the same, especially if you have a mixed fleet of vehicles that weren't ordered all at the same time, if they're being calibrated at different places. There are a lot of differences that, I mean, say for instance now with this unit here, it's stating that I'm on other work. If I turn the ignition on and then off, it goes straight automatically into brake. Now that can obviously cause a big problem, because now I've turned the ignition off, say for instance to get out the vehicle, and I didn't realise the ignition was on in the first place. Then any of the other work that you were doing, say for instance if you were doing vehicle checks, and looking around the vehicle, and you need to do your 15 minutes worth of checks on a class 2, 15 minutes on a class 1, and obviously 10 minutes on a 7.5 ton. If you hadn't done that, then that wouldn't log on your tachograph report, and wouldn't obviously log on your card either, of which case then that could be questionable for Vosa, and they could decide whether that would warrant an infringement. So you'd have to start again with your vehicle checks for the time. It can be also the other way around, whereas you can be in brake mode. As soon as you turn the ignition, say you're getting hot, it's the middle of summer, you undo the window, as soon as you turn the ignition on, it goes straight from brake into other work. That can mean that all the brake that you've previously taken is wiped completely clean. You'll have to start your brakes all over again. That could cause you an issue with your employer, because obviously if a job needs to be done within a time frame, you can't carry on. You've got to go back into brake and take your brake all over again, which obviously leads to a lot of aggravation and a lot of problems. So you need to be very, very careful that obviously your tachograph unit isn't going to do something like that. Make sure obviously your keys are all out. I mean, even in some instances you can't do sort of print offs, you can't remove your card without the key in the ignition. On some you can. So obviously they're all programmed in different ways, which makes it sound a little bit more complicated. You'll probably get used to the vehicles that you're always driving, but always double check as soon as the keys are out of the ignition. Look back at the unit and see what obviously work mode it's in, whether you've put it in brake, whether you've put it in other work or period availability, and make sure it's still in that mode. Otherwise obviously you could be causing yourself a problem or lead to an infringement with Vosa, which you'll obviously get fined for. So take extra care, double check, or always do your changes once your keys are out the ignition, and try to remember not to put the keys back in the ignition and turn it on, because it could cancel all your brake off. Okay, hope that helps.